Mararoa. So I stayed on the ship for about 9 months. I joined there early in January, and I finished up somewhere about mid-September until about middle of September. Sometime I meet an old shipmate of mine, and he said, "Oh, you better come ashore. I'm working in the North Island in the bush." I said, "What doing?" "Oh," he says, "making 4-foot wide tracks, chopping trees down, and all sorts of stuff like that." And he says, "The bush is full of wild pigeons, and I have a gun." He says, "And very often I make a pigeon stew, and by Jove, it's going good too, with a few spuds and onions in, and I can tell you, you wouldn't swap for a good cold bit of meat." So I decided to go with him. I said, "I'll go to Littleton and put my notice in, and when I come back to Wellington, you wait for me here, and I'll leave the ship and we'll go north." So that was agreed to, and so I did. When I came back to Wellington, I got paid off, and with a handful of golden sovereigns. And of course, we went to the train, bought tickets, and got aboard the train. We didn't waste any time in Wellington. We left for the country. We went as far as Sohakune, where we arrived late in the evening. And we got off and went somewhere to have a sleep for the night in some boarding house. And next morning, my cuppa goes around to investigate. He knew where the public works offices was and one thing another. And so he came back and said, "There's nothing very good here. We'll go a bit further. We'll go to Raurimu." So I said, "Right, well, it's all in your hands. We'll go where you like." So we went to Raurimu, got in a place there to stay. Next day, Fossick Brown went to the public works and came back with a blueprint and said, "Oh, there's quite a good job some 20 miles out from Raurimu, but towards the Wanganui River." He said, "It's not fair, about 4 miles in the bush from the Wanganui River." And he says, we'll take the job and go out." And of course, to go to work those days there, you had to buy your own tent, your pick and shovel, your compound, and your eating tools, and everything that was imaginable. And tucker, flour, and spuds, and things like to last at least about a couple of months. He said, "Out there is a cook. You can go out now and again, and he kills a sheep, and we can get sometimes fresh meat and some milk." So we went out, we got all the gear ready, and there was a chap who was driving a team of pack horses, and he got together 20 pack horses, and we loaded them all up. And we set sail, and about 4 miles out of Raurimu, there was, it's all in a sort of Papa country, Papa rock roads, and just being formed. And Papa is a sort of blue rock, and if you disturb it, chop it, and then rain comes on it, it turns into blue mud. And the horses in places went down to over their knees down, and we only had one horse between the three to ride. All the rest had the loads on their backs. So we had to take it in turns, and talk about trouble getting out along these muddy roads. So, but however, we reached some Pamas country, and the going was good there. And we kept on going until about midday or somewhere, and I became very hungry and thirsty, and I thought, by Jove, this is not much good, going out in the wild like this. So we came to a camp where a joker was camping. He was doing some scrub cutting or something. And he was in the camp, and the pack horse driver knew him. They started to talk, and he said, "We'll have a bit of snack here and leave the horses have a spell." So he left the horses loose, and we sat down, and joker filled the billy with water, put a Manuka stick across, and boiled it. And of course that was all strange to me. I never seen that sort of thing done before. So he took a handful of tea and threw it in the billy and kept on knocking with a stick on the side until the tea leaves sunk to the bottom. And then I was watching all these very anxiously, and I don't know what they put in the tea, whether it was cream or very milky cream or creamy milk rather or something. But it was the best cup of tea I tasted in my life, I can tell you that. So I enjoyed to the full and got very refreshed. And after about an hour, we set sail again. And towards the evening, about 6 o'clock, we came to the end of the track, and there was our job just over a steep bluff on the other side. But the horses couldn't get over there, so he said, you'll have to camp here, pitch a temporary tent and camp here for the night and carry your gear over the top of the bluff, and your job is just starting on the other side of the bluff. So that was that. He disappeared with the horses. I think he went to a farmer. There was a farmer across the river, we call it, but there was not much water in it. And he went away, and we pitched a temporary tent and gathered some fern together and boiled the billy, of course, and had a snack and went to bed. Next morning we got up early with the birds and looked up to the bluff, and it was very uninviting place to climb over. No track, no hardly any shrub growing, just a few creeping vines to catch hold of. And good job we had picks with us, so we don't like the mountain climbers. In many places we carved in steps to go up. And we eventually got to the top and carried all the gear over on the other side and got busy, set to work, pitched the camp, fell a tree, and he knew how to do it. And it was a tree that split very easy. And he split it in wide slabs, about 6 foot long, and put a couple on each side of under the fly for seats, and the rest of them stood up on end and fastened with saplings round and round for the chimney, and built the fire inside of it, just like these old-fashioned tin chimneys, but it was all wood, all made out of green wood. It surely didn't catch fire anyway. And so we had a look at the job, found the pegs where we had to start, and next day we started to work. And about dinner time, the overseer arrived too, and we had done it in the right place for one thing. And he showed us the job. It was a job, a piece of 12-foot road to form 12 foot wide and 16 chains long. And we wandered up from end to end and inspected it, and it was a fairly easy-going sort of a country. There was a bit of a sidling. And in some places, the sidling, the butter was up about 7 or 8 feet high, and there was some rock to drill and blast out. And of course, we had to, he told us we had to buy our own explosives and take them with us. And we started on, and we got on pretty good, worked away. And that was in middle of September. And about a fortnight after, the joker came on the job again and brought us some newspapers. And you know that Wellington, Auckland, and all Littleton, all the rest of the town going on that 1911-12 big seamen's strike. And of course, we had no idea that people were in town out of work. We were quite happy. We had plenty of work. And before I left town, I took my union book along to the shipping office and asked him to put a stamp on telling that I have temporarily left the sea to go to work ashore. So he did it. Well, I thought when we finish the job and I go back to town, I'll be right to go to sea again. Anyway, we worked until just about 2-3 days before Christmas. And we finished the job. And the overseer came out now and again, and he says, "You boys are doing all right. He said, if you were in town, you would have been starving. He said, it was in old Bill Massey's government time. He said, Bill Massey sent out to the country and employed the cockatoos with their horses. And he said, they are riding the streets and dispersing the strikers and doing all sorts of dirty things. So he says, you're very lucky. And by the look of it, the strike is just about going to finish. So in the meantime, we saw some jokers took the bluff on what we had to climb on. That was only 2 chains across the bottom, but it was about 50 feet high in the middle. And they had to go at the very top and skin the moss and stuff off and then keep on punching holes and putting blasting powder in and blasting great big slabs of down the bottom into the creek until they came to the road level. And then they leveled up the road, and it was about 4 feet out, 4 feet higher on one side than the other, but they remedied that after, made a bit of incline to go over the road in the bluff. And I said, we agreed to my mate, we would take another job like this, as what they call the stone drive. A road goes to a creek, and then instead of putting a bridge or something, they go down to the water level and bore a tunnel about 6 foot high by 3 foot by 2 feet at the bottom, and go into the hillside and then sort of cruise round and round until you come out about 60, 70 feet further upstream. And then when you form the road on top, you just put the rubbish and stuff down in the creek, and the water rises up and runs through the tunnel. And there was a pair of chappies doing this sort of work. And I said to my mate, but we can do better than that. That papa rock seems to be soft. You can cut it with knife. I said, supposing we go in Christmas time and buy some augers. And then I had a trade, and me and I had an idea to take the worm off and split the end of it and bend one the one way, another the other way, so that when you turn to the right, both edges is cutting the rock. And right enough, we went to Auckland for Christmas. We were walking out to Raurimu, and we was about halfway out when somebody was driving a horse and gig on its own, going the same way, and he offered us a lift, and then, we were very thankful for it, and he picked us up and took us right into Raurimu. So we wasted no time. We took a train and went to Auckland to spend the holiday.